Thank you, Chase. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, good afternoon. It is a real pleasure to be with all of you here today with civic leaders and my fellow local elected officials, including City Council President Georgette Gomez, Council Member Monica Montgomery, our San Diego Police Department Chief Dave Nislight, Jerry Sanders, former Mayor and former Chief of Police, Bishop William Benson of Total Deliverance Worship Center, Yusef Miller of the Racial Justice Coalition, Gerald Brown, Executive Director of the Citizens Advisory Board on Police and Community Relations, Charmaine Mosley, Executive Director, Community Review Board on Police Practices, and Steph Gross, who is Chair of the City's Human Relations Commission. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for others who have joined us this afternoon. America is grieving right now. People are in despair. People are angry. And people are scared. People want change. George Floyd should be alive today. His death never should have happened. And it never should have happened at the hands of a police officer. And as I said last week, in the strongest possible terms, I condemn, and the City of San Diego's Police Department condemns those officers' actions. What we saw in Minneapolis is not authorized by the San Diego Police Department, and it is not used in San Diego. What happened in Minneapolis was wrong, and it was unacceptable. And it shouldn't happen anywhere in the United States of America. And today, we are taking new steps to make sure it doesn't happen here in San Diego. San Diegans have a right. San Diegans have a right to protest, a right to demand change, a right to peaceably assemble and speak out against systemic racism, and to express their pain. We cannot let the pain that we feel manifest in ways that hurt our community. 95% of the demonstrators were peaceful last night in San Diego. The very small percentage of those who engaged in violence, they are doing a huge disservice to those that are out there peacefully demonstrating. Every object that is thrown, every act of vandalism, every fight that erupts, it drowns out the legitimate voice of protesters. We will not stand for the hijacking of this moment that we are all in. We will not stand this hijacking to perpetuate violence in our city. Violence that puts San Diegans in danger, protesters, peaceful protesters in danger, and first responders in danger. The city will keep working to maintain order and to protect peaceful assembly. San Diegans have a right to be upset what happened to George Floyd. I've been very upset about it myself. Our nation is better than that. So let's do something about it. We have some real wounds in our nation that we can help begin to heal here in San Diego. Let's use this moment as an opportunity to show what we can do differently. I have directed the city's police advisory and oversight commissions to hold emergency meetings this week. Meetings to discuss what we can do better, how we can do better on police and community relations, and what we can do better on police escalation. And as I just mentioned, those meetings will happen this week. And I encourage everyone who wants to participate in that future for San Diego to participate. When we see injustice, words are good. Action is better. Chief Nislight reached out to me last week after the tragic events in Minneapolis. He told me he thought it was time to make a change in the San Diego Police Department. Specifically, he was talking about the carotid restraint hold. It is a de-escalation technique that the department uses. It was used about 70 times last year. And our community has expressed repeated concerns and frustrations about its use. And I want to say that we hear you. We don't want one technique to be a symbol of injustice. This morning, Council President Gomez, Council Member Montgomery, Chief Nislight, and I met with community members about this topic. And the Chief announced that he will be stopping the use of the carotid restraint technique in San Diego Police Department, effective immediately. I thank the Chief for his actions. I thank the Chief for his continued leadership for our department and for protecting our entire community, particularly during very difficult circumstances that we are facing, not only here in the city of San Diego, but in cities across the nation. We have one goal right now, to keep people safe, to make sure that those that are assembling peacefully can continue to do that in the city of San Diego, but to send a very strong message about what we will not tolerate in terms of violence. Chief Nislight, thank you again for your leadership. Thank you for being helpful to show how we can take actions here in San Diego that will begin to make a difference. And with that, I would like to introduce Chief Nislight to come up and say a few words. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for your support. I first want to start off talking about the incident in Minneapolis, and first and foremost give my condolences to the entire Floyd family and his friends. His death was something that never should have happened, and I think everybody saw, not only myself, but nationally, chiefs from large cities across this nation condemn the actions of those officers in Minneapolis. I don't think I've ever seen that in my 32 years in law enforcement where other chiefs from other cities condemn actions. But in this case, it was 100% right. I'm angry. I can tell you all the officers from our department are angry. I can tell you my chiefs are angry about what we saw and what occurred in Minneapolis and the death of Mr. Floyd. I want to talk about the protests right now. San Diego Police Department is with you in solidarity. We will facilitate your ability to protest, but I want to say protest peacefully. We have seen the majority of folks do that throughout since this incident last Monday, or a week away from now. So all I'm asking is for people to peacefully protest. We will facilitate that all day and night. We'll be out there with you, making certain that you have the right to do that and you can do that safely. But we will not tolerate lawlessness. We will not tolerate you looting, vandalizing, and assaulting law enforcement. And so you will see us take swift action like you did last night. You will see us take swift action when people start assaulting law enforcement. I will not have my officers assaulted. I won't have others assaulted, and we will not tolerate vandalism, looting, and just lawlessness. So work with us. There's more protests today. There's more protests coming. We understand your anger, and we're with you, and it's time for change. And that will take me to my next topic, and that's to talk about the carotid restraint. And as the mayor said, shortly thereafter, the incident in Minneapolis, and mind you, this has been coming. This is something that we've been talking about for years. In fact, I think it was my first week as chief back in early 2018 that this request was made formally to me. And it's something that I've been looking at for really hard, doing a lot of research, doing a lot of studies on this topic. But then when you look at what occurred in Minneapolis, and you've got to listen to the community, and that's one of the things that I will say and proudly say about the San Diego Police Department is we do listen to our communities. And I heard the community loud and clear, and that's why I think it's time. And so effective immediately, I put out to all my members that we are stopping the use of the crowded restraint. Department order will either go out today or tomorrow, but I did put out a message to all my troops that it stops immediately. It's the right thing to do for the community, and it's the right thing to do for our officers. And let me expand on that just a little bit. When I say it's the right thing to do, is for our officers too. Some will say it's taking away a tool. I actually say it's a layer of protection. And let me explain that. One of my main tasks as a police chief is to protect the community and law enforcement from encounters, some of those fatal encounters that we don't want to be involved in. I don't want to get in fatal encounters because of this. So this is the change. I hear the community loud and clear. We understand that more change needs to be happened, and we are here to listen, and we're here to make changes. But we also want to be heard. We will be part of that change. And so I'm encouraged by what I saw today. I'm encouraged by everybody that was in that meeting today with me. Again, I want to talk about the support of the mayor, support of the COO, Chris Michelle. I also want to say the support that I got from my executive chief, all my chiefs that are over there, Chief Guadarrama and all the chiefs over to my left. We had some great conversations about this very topic, not just this week, last week, but we've had these discussions over the last years. And we all agree it's time. And so that's, again, that's why the change. And so I look forward to working with the community in building that trust. We understand there's more to be done, and we are sitting here ready to get more done. And again, I'm encouraged by the meeting today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Now I'd like to introduce City Council President Georgette Gomez. Council President.
Thank you. Put this down a little bit. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief. Today, we have reached a historical crossroads. And as leaders, we have an opportunity to do things differently. We must acknowledge the hurt, the anger, the pain that bleeds in our communities of color. And we must write a different chapter in history. And today, San Diego, we begin a new chapter. I'm proud to stand with leaders of our communities of color. I'm proud to stand with my colleague, Monica Montgomery, the mayor, Kevin Faulkner, and Chief Nislight. We're here to tell you that we are committed to doing everything we can to make systems change. We can set a tone with our own law enforcement agencies. We can ensure that there are proper trainings and that the time is now to invest in restorative justice. And we can make sure that any officer who does not understand how Black and brown lives matter do not have legal access to tactics that are unnecessary and deadly. And today, I stand and I want to thank from the bottom of my heart, Chief Nislight, thank you for hearing the cry of justice. By taking a bold step towards community policing. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President Gomez. I'd now like to invite Councilmember Monica Montgomery. Councilmember.
Thank you, Mayor Faulkner, for that introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. Councilmember Monica Montgomery, the chair of the Committee on Public Safety and Livable Neighborhoods. I'm really grateful to be with you all this afternoon. From the beginning of my administration, one of my pillars of governance has been advocating for police reform through transparency and accountability. We have worked diligently to change the conversation and narrative around police reform. We have worked in good faith to establish an independent commission on police practices, and now we are confronted with the horrors of the George Floyd death in the midst of an already debilitating pandemic. Two lessons that we are learning from these nationwide protests is that we need police reform and we need it now. As elected officials, we have a collective responsibility to stand up to the injustices that have plagued our communities of color. We do this by demanding accountability, transparency, and working together to confront systemic racism. Our city, as the council president said, has reached an historic crossroad. We must call for peace, but we simply can't call for peace from the community without corresponding good faith action from us as elected officials. We must be willing to stand here through our personal discomfort and be honest and genuine when we discuss the inequity and enforcement that is prevalent in our nation. Today is a big win for our community groups that have called for a ban on the carotid restraint for many years. In particular, I just want to quickly recognize the hard work and advocacy of the Racial Justice Coalition, of CPAT, the Coalition for Police Accountability and Transparency, and the NAACP. The announcement of this crucial policy change is a step in the right direction to restoring trust in community policing. I want to really, from the bottom of my heart, thank Mayor Faulkner, thank Chief Nislight, and thank my colleague, the Council President Georgette Gomez, for joining your voices in our grassroots movement to flatten the curve on inequity in enforcement and by taking tangible action today. I'd particularly, again, like to thank Chief Nislight for really leading in this and saying that it is time. I stand here before you as a black woman who is a sister to two brothers and an aunt to two nephews, and I long and hope for the day where they can walk out of their homes and feel protected and feel safe in our country. We have a beautiful city with beautiful people, but we also have issues of systemic racism that we need to deal with. And I believe that this is an opportunity for us to do that. And I'm just grateful to have partners who are willing, ready, and able during this time to have those conversations, to laugh together, to cry together, but most importantly, to make progressive change together. And so today we roll up our sleeves and we make a commitment to do the necessary hard work, and we make the hard decisions to effectuate that change. I look forward to ongoing discussions around police reform, policy changes, and the ballot measure to establish independent oversight in November. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember. Thank you both for those very powerful words. Next, I'd like to introduce former mayor and, of course, the former chief of police, Jerry Sanders. Jerry?
Thank you very much, Kevin. Throughout my career, I've seen America grapple with the injustices of past and present in many ways, at many different times. I've been back. I was a young man during the Watts riots. I saw the Rodney King riots. I saw the riots that occurred in LA after that. We've seen the Ferguson riots, and yet we haven't learned how to systematically start talking about those issues. The events of the past week across the nation and this weekend here in San Diego are a painful reminder of just how much work remains to be done when it comes to racial equality and justice in America. We hear the voices calling for overdue change and action and are committed to seeing those positive changes made. It's the right decision to change this policy. Thank you very much, Chief Neslight. And yet we recognize it's but one component of what is needed to fully address this issue. What it does now is to remove one flashpoint to police interactions with citizens, and very importantly, it starts the road to discussing meaningful change. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. And last but certainly not least, I'm going to introduce Pastor Bishop William Benson. And Bishop was joining us this morning. We've had the opportunity to meet and converse on a variety of topics, and all of the clergy that was with us earlier this morning. A powerful, not just statement, but in reality, about how important it is for all of us to come together as one community in this difficult time. Bishop Benson, thank you for your leadership, sir. Thank you for doing everything that you are doing to join our community together. Bishop?
Good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to give honor to God because this is truly a God moment. I want to give honor to our Mayor Kevin Faulkner, definitely to our police chief, Chief Neslight, and to our county council member president, President Gozmez, as well as District Number 4 Council Member Monica Montgomery. This has been a historical moment. I would be honored if we could have all the grassroots agencies who have been allowing this opportunity to keep this issue on the table. They fought hard, and this happened to be a God moment for us to come together. And as clergy, it has been an awesome privilege to actually be at the table with the decision makers at a point in time where we also represent the community. Being a clergy is an honorable position, but I have to remember that I was a black man before I was a clergy, and I have to wear both hats, and I want to wear them proudly. I want to be able to say that we actually have established a table where our elected officials and our law enforcement and the community are at a table now to take the opportunity of a grand situation to make the changes, the obvious changes that need to be made. I could not have been honored to be at a table with a group of fine, intelligent, educated, professional people on today who took off their titles. There was no Republicans, there was no Democrats, there was no independents. There were humans who had emotion about a tragedy that has taken place in our United States. We know that this is a small step to some, and it's a huge step to others. We know we have a lot of work to do, and we have a long way to get there, but a short time to take. But I believe the mayor has put together an awesome team, and I believe our community has now celebrated a win. And we thank you, Mayor Faulkner.
Thank you, Bishop. Thank you. That concludes our remarks, and I'm now pleased to pause. Any of us up here can answer any questions from members of the media. Yes, Phil.
Give a reporter a microphone. I don't know if he'll put it back down. Anyway, question for Chief Neslight. Chief, this is not your first rodeo. I mean, we've talked about community policing. Also, you heading up SWAT. Your guys over here who used to be either captains, sergeants, or lieutenants. Back in 2016, we know what happened after a presidential candidate spoke at the convention center. But can you tell us who the heck are these people? Because we know that this is not Black Lives Matter. We know that for a fact. Who are these people who are coming from outside of our city and infiltrating our city and causing this damage, causing this destruction, causing this violence and looting?
Yeah, as I said, and I know the mayor said the same thing, you know, the vast majority of people coming in to protest, and again, I understand their anger, are coming in with the intention of being peaceful, of allowing their voices to be heard. What we can tell you is, I'm not going to specifically tell you who they are. I can tell you there is a small fraction of people that come not only from within this region, but example, last night we had 97 folks arrested. About a quarter of those folks were from outside of the San Diego area. So we do know historically, nationally, when we look at protests, that we will have people come in from other parts of the country to do this very thing. So what you see is you have to look at the dynamics of a crowd, and that's one of the things that we will always do, and also just trying to gather as much as intelligence on what is going on in the crowd and what is being said and everything such as that. And so there's people that will come to this town with their sole goal of anarchy. And that's destruction, that's damage, that's violence. It's violence towards people, it's violence towards law enforcement, and it's just a full disregard for everything else. They don't care about looting, they don't care about setting things on fire. In fact, that's their goal. And so we, myself, our executive team, our captains running the things out in the field, this isn't our first rodeo, and so we are doing our very, very best, and that's our commitment, is we are doing our very, very best to make certain that we keep control of this city. And as I said, we will be very decisive. I've told that to our officers. I know our command staff feels the same exact way. We will be very decisive about what it is that will be allowed. But I'm not going to tolerate unlawful behavior. I'm not going to tolerate, for example, what's being thrown at our officers. And that's everything from glass bottles to water bottles to bricks to rocks to hatchets to hammers. I'm not going to tolerate it. And so you will see immediate response. And that is really to keep us safe, but also to keep the community safe. Because if they're willing to do that to us, they're willing to do it to you. And so that's my goal, is to keep us safe, and we'll keep doing that, and that's our commitment.
Actually, I was going to follow up with the chief as well, too. But actually, while you're there, Mayor, I'm sorry, Omari Fleming at Channel 7. President Trump just a couple of minutes ago quoted as saying, "I'm mobilizing all available federal resources, civilian and military, to stop the rioting and looting, to end the destruction and arson, to protect the rights of law-abiding Americans, including your Second Amendment rights." Military needed here to take care of what's going on in the city of San Diego?
The mayor and I have had these discussions. I have not called for that. I believe, one thing San Diego is very fortunate is that whole collaboration, cooperation with all of the agencies in this county. And that includes our federal partners, that includes the county sheriff, that includes other agencies throughout this city. And we've been helping them, and they've been helping us. And so at this time right now, I believe we have the resources to do what we need to do. And you will see us working in coordination with each other. Again, I had sheriffs helping us last night. I had members of Chula Vista Police Department, Harbor Police Department, and we will continue to do that. We will continue to work this as a regional issue because, again, we're not going to stand for this. Thank you.
And just curfew. Any thoughts on a curfew? I guess that would be the mayor's question, or you can go ahead. Both of you guys can answer it.
No, that's fine. Another issue that the chief and I have discussed, the issue of a curfew. And I've told the chief this is a tool that we can use if we need to use it. It's a public safety tool, obviously. We will continue to monitor the situation as it happens on a daily and hourly basis. But let me turn it over to the chief, because it is something, as I said, from a law enforcement standpoint, that's where we will take our direction in terms of a curfew. Chief?
Yeah, we as far as the question is about curfews, and it is a tool that's available for us. Right now, it's not a tool that I plan on implementing, but that could change. I've talked to chiefs across the nation. Some have deployed curfews, some have not. I will tell you right now, that's not my plan. The mayor and I have talked with this. I've talked with my executive team about this, and I will hold what we think of the curfew. Again, it's a tool. I know it's available, and we'll use it if it's needed.
Richard Allen from Channel 8, News 8. This is for Chief Nislite. You were talking about the carotid restraint some critics might say by taking it away, it's taking away a valuable tool, but you said it's actually a layer of protection. Can you expand on that and what you meant by that?
Yeah, I've been on record for talking about, concerns even 2 years ago when I became the chief. The concern of taking away a lower level of force is a concern. And, when we look at lower levels of force, we're always trying to use the force that is most likely to affect the arrest with the lowest amount of force used. That's always our goal. What I meant about another layer of protection, again, one of my main tasks as chief of police is to stop encounters, fatal encounters between San Diego law enforcement, or, our police officers, and the community. And right now we know that the carotid restraint is something that makes people very angry. And so, again, looking at the big picture, it's really something that I'm trying to do to calm everybody down, to make certain that we're not having those type of encounters between law enforcement and the community. And we will look at other options as far as possible additional, less lethal, lower levels of force that we might be able to bring on. But again, and we've been saying this a lot, and San Diego has been historically known for community-oriented policing, actually started by Mayor Jerry Sanders, former Chief Jerry Sanders. You have to listen to your communities, and it's been very loud and clear, especially, it's been this way for years, but especially after the incident in Minneapolis. You need to listen to the community, and the community's asked for this, and I felt it was time. And I've explained that to the officers, and there's no doubt, I believe this is the right decision. So.
And just a quick follow-up to something the mayor had said about emergency meetings being held this week. Will you be meeting actually with some of the demonstrators or protesters or people who had organized these protests? Or
No, thank you. As I said, we had a great meeting today with a lot of community representatives, some of them who are here that have been very active, been very vocal. We will continue that through our Citizen Advisory Board and our other police review board. That's incredibly important. Again, back to what community policing is all about. It's taking that input from our community. That's been a hallmark of this city for a very long time, one that we're very proud of, one that we want to continue to be a national leader on, with one goal: how do we keep people safe? Any other additional questions?
Oh, hi, Adriana with Voice of San Diego. There's a proposed measure on the November ballot. I don't know if you can hear me. There's a proposed measure on the November ballot that would provide an independent police oversight commission with subpoena power to conduct its own investigation to alleged police misconduct. Do you support giving subpoena power to an independent police oversight? Why or why not?
Yeah, that is moving forward. It will be on the ballot. We've been having a lot of very good, productive discussions with our Police Officers Association, and I look forward to giving it my full support.
Thank you.
My question is both for the mayor and the chief. Laura Acevedo with ABC 10 News. In other parts of the country, we have seen police chiefs or police officers interacting with the demonstrators out at the protest, local leaders speaking directly to them, kneeling with them, listening to them. Is that something that the police department or city leaders have considered doing as a form of communicating and letting them know that they're being heard?
Yes, and I think you saw some of that yesterday. I don't know if you saw some of the photos and videos of some of our officers, not just interacting, but fist bumping some of the protesters and having that dialogue, having that discussion. That's incredibly important, again, because it reinforces what we've all said, which is peaceful assembly, peaceful calls for change is something that this city, this mayor, this police chief, this department supports 100%. And the more that we have that interaction, the more that we had the interactions that we've had over the last several weeks, and particularly a very heartfelt meeting earlier this morning with some of the, really leading organizers in our city. That's how you affect change. As Bishop just said, it was a meeting talking about, it's not just about words, it's about what are the actions that we should be taking as a city. When we focus on that, when we do that, we're going to make our city better, not just for what we're doing and going through right now, but for the long term. That's why this is so incredibly important.
Hi, my name's Jamie Chambers with Fox 5. Councilwoman Montgomery, if we could fast forward 6 months to a year, what would the police force of the future look like to you, and what do you want it to look like?
Look back at the chief. First of all, if you all don't mind, I would like to give the council president a minute after this, answering this question, because she actually attended protests and has a perspective if she wants to share it, and based on the last question. And also, I did attend for a little while at the county administration building yesterday. So 6 months from now, and you know, we are working to make up for a lot of time in our nation of the history of policing. And that doesn't reflect on the people who are policing. It is a systems issue. And so, you know, hopefully in 6 months, we will have, our city will have voted for an independent commission that has subpoena power, their own attorney, and investigative powers for our city. I think it will fare well in building trust between police and community. There are also other issues that we want to bring up. We talked about de-escalation policies and looking at some of the other departments around the nation that were under consent decrees. We do not have a consent decree here, but we want to be proactive, and I think that's very, very important. We also need to talk about profiling and pretext stops as well. Bring that into the conversation. We have a lot to do. We've really come, I think, very far, and it takes all of us. It takes this partnership in order to really achieve that, because no matter what we do on a policy level, these are matters of the heart and perspective and how we see one another as human beings. So above all, we talk about police reform a lot, but there are a lot of other issues that we need to address: economic opportunity, safe, healthy communities, in order to really assist officers in some of the work that they do and some of the interactions that they have to have. It is a holistic approach, it is a collective approach, and it takes a partnership, and so we'll be ready to do that work.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to add to the last question about the events that have been occurring. Actually, I've been in close communication with Councilmember Montgomery, and there was actually earlier in the day, we had a collective call about how the city should respond, including Mayor Faulkner. And out of all of that, just seeing the interactions with the community and the community being in the streets, I decided to go to downtown when downtown was occurring, just to ensure that that I can assist in de-escalating the energy in the streets. So I was definitely present. I walked with the community members to the county, and it was a beautiful thing. It was I experienced beautiful things, but also the bad energy that has been inserted to the situation, and it was pretty. That part was heartbreaking, just because there's real hurt, there's real pain occurring right now, and people want to have a space to express that. Within all of that, there's interactions that led to tear gassing, to rubber bullets being utilized, and what's in the midst of it actually was on the phone talking to Chief Nislight and our CEO, Chris Michelle, while it was occurring, asking for it to stop, because there were opportunities to really bring and bridge the community with how the PD was interacting. So I'm hopeful that we can continue creating those safe spaces for our community members to express their hurt. They need to be heard, and they have that right, and I'm supportive of that. And just to add to what would 6 months look like for our PD, I think we're in the process of finalizing our new budget. And aside from making better policies and implementing those policies better, dollars also speak to that. So this is just the mayor's hearing. We have an opportunity to do things differently. We constantly talk about de-escalation. That's going to take resources for PD to implement. We don't have a real budget for that. We talk about revitalizing our communities. That too is a form of community policing by creating better infrastructure in our communities, lighting some of the dark communities, creating just better resources, creating better opportunities that lead to jobs, and that also leads to the city's budget. So we have an opportunity to do more beyond policy changes, beyond implementing those policies. We can put dollars to ensure that we are doing much more than just creating policies.
Thank you, Councilor. Do you have any additional questions?
And the next question I'll read on behalf of Matt Hoffman with KPBS. How do you repair the relationships between SDPD and the communities of color right now who are upset?
Chief?
Thank you for that question. It really starts with just dialogue. This police department has a history of community policing, and when you look at things that are going on across the nation before this, that's why we haven't had those major issues over that, is because we do have a great relationship with our communities, but it can always be better, and that's one thing that we're striving to do. I believe this, the ending of the carotid restraint is another piece of that, and as I've said before, we're a very, very good police department. I'm very proud to be a member of this police department. My family comes from this police department, but I also know that we can be better, and so you never rest on your laurels. You always reach to be better. And as I stated, very shortly after the incident in Minneapolis, that law enforcement must do better. Our profession must do better. And that's my commitment. And it will start with honest conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you to everybody who was here today and joined us, council members, Chief Nislight, Bishop Benson, all of our community leaders. An important day in our city, important policy change. Thank you. We will continue to do everything that we can and will do to encourage peaceful assembly in the city of San Diego, and remind everybody of that, to be extra vigilant. Thank you, and I look forward to addressing everybody tomorrow. Thank you very much.